3 or 4 years ago, whilst in the Holy Land, we visited the Church of the Multiplication on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. It was a hot Tuesday morning when we got off the coach and walked through a courtyard of arches, right in the middle of which there is, or was, a beautiful olive tree, whose leaves are coloured with those soft shades of Wedgwood green, and then on into the small church. The church itself is modern, however it stands over at least two former churches, the earliest of which dates to around 350 AD. The altar is simple, a table of white marble, in front of which there is visible the rock on which the church stands. Preserved on the floor are the earliest Christian mosaics to be found in the Holy Land, dating right back to the time of that first church. And just in front of the altar there is a mosaic which represents the events that are commemorated in this holy place. The mosaic, which is not very big, shows a dish holding 4 loaves and 2 fishes. The Church of the Multiplication was built in honour of the feeding of the 5,000 with 5 small loaves and 2 fishes. So why does this mosaic depict only 4 loaves and 2 fishes? Well, we'll come back to that later. So what is this story about? This story that you'll find in John 6, verses 1 to 21. Well, it's about what happened on that hillside beside that lake all those hundreds of years ago. So let's look at the story. We find Jesus being followed by a crowd, and eventually he has to stop and talk to them. These people are spiritually hungry, and Jesus has hopefully met their needs. However, they now need food because they find themselves physically hungry. Jesus shows his compassion for them as he realizes their plight. He turns to Philip and asks, "Where can we buy bread?" Philip looks at the crowd and then replies that even if they could buy bread, that they wouldn't have enough money to pay for it. Andrew then informs Jesus that there is a lad who has 2 fish and 5 loaves, and then asks, "But what are they among so many?" We're about to find out that great things can be done by small things, that little actions can make big differences. I wonder who this boy was. I wonder what his name was. I bet that when he said he was going out for the day, that his mother gave him 2 fishes and the 5 small buns so that he would not be hungry. Did he stumble across Jesus? Did he follow a crowd to see what was going on? Or had he intended following Jesus? We'll never know. After the lad has given his loaves and fishes to Andrew, Jesus turns to the people and tells them to sit down. They sit on the grass. Jesus prays over the simple food, and then he breaks it, and it's distributed amongst the people. Jesus works through the boy to share his small offering with others, and in doing so he turns that tiny offering into something great. This whole story is about sharing and about compassion. The boy is willing to share his gift, and in return Jesus shows compassion for the hungry people sat before him. Both share their gifts willingly. When all have eaten, Jesus asks that the bits be gathered up so that nothing may be lost. Jesus wants no waste because everything and everyone is precious in his sight. Nothing is too small, no one too lowly not to be important to God. And this story is full of detail. The boy, the mention of the grass, which seems to imply that it was springtime, the naming of Philip and Andrew. Everything is really precisely told. This is clearly a story about sharing and commitment. And for some theologians, this is enough. The importance of this story being that out of this situation, Jesus has taught this great crowd of people to share. I agree with this. However, I think that this story is also about much, much more. You see, I firmly believe that at the very heart of this story, that there is a miracle. So what is a miracle? Well, my definition of a miracle is an event or happening which cannot be explained by science, reason, or logic. I've known this story since I was a child, and when I was a child, I believed in it as a literal happening. As a teenager, I questioned it. As I studied theology at Teacher Training College and later at Theological College, I was given and I read many different theories about what this story means and what actually took place. Now I'm right back where I started from. I believe that what took place that day was a miracle, a simple miracle. I believe that on that hillside, by that lake, on that day 2,000 years ago, that Jesus fed a great crowd of people with only 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fishes. Why do I believe that? Well, for a start, this event was recorded, and it was recorded carefully and clearly, and most importantly of all, it was remembered. The church which we visited was built on a spot on which there's been a church for nearly 2,000 years. So something important, significant, incredible happened there all those years ago. If it had not, then a church, a marker, would not have been built, and people would not have revered this place for so long, and this happening would certainly not have been remembered. On that hillside, Jesus took 5 loaves and 2 fishes. He blessed them, and then he blessed and fed the people. And in so doing, he taught them to share and to show compassion to one another. People remember miracles, and this was a miracle. Remember the mosaic with 2 fishes and only 4 loaves in the basket. This is because you and me, we, the people who look at the basket, are the 5th loaf. And as we look at the mosaic, we become a part of the miracle, sharing in the knowledge that we stand in the presence of God. And that too is a part of this miracle. Jesus gave to the people all that they needed.